Hi everybody, and welcome to the Workday 2022 R2 session. And I'm going to be talking about the upcoming features under the HCM core topic, and a little bit about myself. I'm Supriya Gurtu, and I am the lead HCM solution consultant here with Every, and these are my certifications. A bit about the webinar practicalities. If you have any questions, please feel free to share those with us via the chat. The session is being recorded, and you would have already received this material as PDF, so feel free to refer to them during the session. To stay updated with the latest in the HR digitalization, please feel free to join our digital HR community. We have a link here. And this is the standard Workday Safe Harbor statement. And yes, before we look at the key features that are being brought out in this release, let's talk about the thought process. So Workday has based these features on these 5 themes. So they want to present a seamless experience to their customers, improve efficiency of the product. They want to be able to enable their customers to meet various regulatory compliances that the country governments are bringing in. They want to help the customers to be more agile with the changing work scenarios that this new working era has brought for all of us, and to provide more insights based on data. So the key features that we're going to talk about are these. This is quite an exhaustive list, and let's hope that we can make through all of these topics today. Let's dig into the first one, which is the availability of some additional fields on the termination business process. So this was brought in because there was a brainstorm from a French customer where they had a compliance requirement in which they had to add these 3 dates: the agreement signature date, the dismissal process start date, and the notice period start date for any employees that were being terminated from the system. So Workday has now enabled these fields for us, and how we can do this is we can see in a bit in a demo. So these new fields have now been added to the maintain localization settings task. Optionally, we can configure more security related features on the configure optional field tasks, which I will also show you. And once we do these 2 actions, Workday will then be able to add these 3 date fields to the employee's termination process. So let's take a look at the demo. We'll go to the maintain localization settings task. And under the staffing area, we can see these 3 date fields now, which are now available, and I have already activated them here and allowed them for certain countries. So we need to do this step before we can see these fields on the business process of termination. Once this is done, we can also via the configure optional fields termination area, you will see that we have now these 3 dates also available, like the agreement signature date, and you can select any criteria if you want to hide for all, require for all, and if you want any specifications for based on the security groups. Want to make it required for certain security groups or hidden for certain security groups. So this step is purely optional. And once this is done, we can see if we have to, let's say, terminate somebody. We'll now be able to see the notice period start date and the other dates in this section, where you can mention the agreement signature date, dismissal process date. This feature again has to do with the regulatory requirements of France. Some additional considerations. There are also new report fields that are available on the additional on the terminate employee event business object, and these three fields now can be used on custom reports, or they can be pulled into the various condition rules that we build. Below web services, get pay, get workers, terminate employees are also now updated with these fields. So let's say if you are running an EIB to terminate some employees, you would see these three dates now available on the template and you can populate them. So to summarize, there are new fields being added. The minimum setup you need to do is activate them, these fields on the maintain localization settings task. If you do not do this, your termination business process will run as is. You will not see any change. The next update is about how we can effectively, track the changes being done in the alternate work location address. So to enable this, Workday provides us with an effective date field when we change or when we update the alternate work location using the work contact change business process. So we all know that working remotely, the employees keep on changing their location. So in case we want to track that and based on that, enable our company to calculate the payroll taxes better, this feature can come in handy. So a quick demo about this. Let's go to Jake Lee and I can show you that under his contact, he already has a couple of alternate addresses set up. You can see that this is the primary and then these are the alternate and they are being tracked now via the effective date. And how we can do that, if you just do change work contact information. Now this is the latest one, and if you add another one here, you'll see this effective date field. And once you add it over here and submit it, again, we will be able to see the new alternate work address under the contact information screen. So to summarize, this was a pretty simple feature. Effective date field is now available to track the alternate work address change. There's no additional configuration that needs to be done in the system to avail this feature. Now, assign roles business process. So this change is mostly related to the theme of how Workday wants to improve on the experience, on the UI experience of their customers. So they have updated the UI for better readability on these three tasks, which is assign role, add remove, assign role change assignments, and assign role change assignments as a sub-business process. So before we talk more about this, let's see what the task looks like, and then we can side by side compare. Let's look at this task. And you can see now that role assignee as of effective date column is now renamed to role assignee as of the specified effective date. So it's talking about this one. This has now been updated. And there is, if we hover around it, there is some text which helps us to understand what field this is. And we can see that these values are then drillable to get a more detailed view. And then role assignments as of assignee effective from date. This one is also now drillable, comes with drillable values, and it's able to give us the different snapshots that may be present for that particular role assignment. They have a new column which has been added. So all of this is to provide better readability and better understanding to the customer of about how and when the roles have been assigned. So this feature is again automatically available. There is no additional configuration that is required. Then continuing with the user experience theme, Workday has tweaked the ad hoc approver functionality in their business processes. So what they are doing now, they are the ad approver functionality has been removed. So from we have earlier seen that on an inbox item, we would see a gear icon where the ad approvers option would be there. And on the business process event, we would also see an ad approver option. Now, these two options are being removed from here, but we would still be able to add an approver from the usual inbox task that we see, which is on the toolbar. They are also renaming the submit button on the add approvers dialog box, which I will show you now in the next slide. And they are also displaying the comments in the comment field as a kind of comment trail to the subsequent approvers or subsequent people who are going to take an action on that event. So for example, you have this review current manager step for a data change. And now before we would have, an action available here and a gear icon in which we would see the ad approvers. They are not there anymore, but this add approver button is still available. Once we click this button, we see this dialog box where you can add the additional approver and put in some comments. This button has now been renamed from submit to approve and send to approvers for more clarity. So we are not submitting the event, but we are just adding, we are approving and then sending it to any additional approvers. And whatever comment is being added over here, the next approvers and the subsequent people taking action are going to see it in their comment trail. So this is what this change looks like. So just a bit of UI changes here. No need to do any configurations. This change will be reflected automatically. Now, Workday had introduced this flexi work arrangements a few releases back. And now in this release, they are improvising it by ending the work arrangements automatically for employees that are moving out of your organization or for employees who are being terminated. So this is again, making the user's life easy by reducing any manual efforts. So they do not have to go to the end flexi arrangement task and do it as a separate process if they are terminating someone or if they are ending any additional jobs or ending contingent worker contract. Any flexible working arrangements that are set up for an employee will end automatically. And let's see how that happens. So if I go to my demo employee today, for Jake Lee, we have some flexi arrangements already in place. They are starting effective 11th of August. We have some type configured and we have some available actions. We can end it via this button separately. But now let's say that we decide to terminate Jake Lee, we'll terminate them after the start date of the flexi work arrangement. There are a couple of steps that I need to go through very quickly to complete this process. I think this should be it. Yeah. Now, if we go back to Jake Lee, yeah, he's terminated, and if we see the flexi job, we can see that it is now ended as of the termination date. And if we go to the worker history, we can see a trail of, when this was done. And if we see this inflexi and the termination happening together here. And let's say if we decide to rescind the termination, this flexi work arrangement will then come back to life again because the worker has now become active. And if we decide to correct the termination, again, the end date of the flexi work arrangement will then be updated with the corrected termination date. Okay, so all of those changes have been accounted for. Yeah. So as I mentioned, some of the additional considerations when we correct an event for termination in contingent worker contract or an additional job and the date is changed, the flexi work arrangement end date will now have the new end date. And if we rescind, Workday will then return the flexi work arrangements to the active state and it will reopen any prior outstanding or scheduled flexi work arrangements. If we are terminating a worker prior to the flexi work arrangement start date, so for instance, we had the flexi work arrangement starting 11th of August, and if we are terminating a worker, let's say 1st of August, then we would have to manually end with the end button that I had shown. We would have to manually end the flexi work arrangement via that end button, and it will not happen automatically in the termination business process. So to make use of this feature, no configuration is required. As long as you're using the flexi work feature in your tenant. Now, let's talk a bit about import external skills. So Anna, in the previous presentation, she mentioned that Workday now allows us to bring in or import the skills from a third-party system. I think this is a really great feature to enable our customers to manage their skills throughout the varied systems that they are using, and then their whole HRIS can talk the same skill language. So this is very critical. And to enable this for our customers, Workday is providing us with a new domain. This is the Manage External Skills domain, which is then going to be used to secure any imported skills, which will then be mapped to the other skills which are there in our tenant. There are then new web services like the Get Skill Vendor, the Put Skill Vendor. There is a new web service, Import External Skill, that will be then used to upload the external skills into Workday. We would be creating an EIB and generating a template, which will then use this web service to upload the external skills. And then again, we have these um, new web services: get external skill mapping, get skill mapping, import external skill mapping, and put skill mapping. That will help us to manage the external skill mapping to the skills in Workday or to the skills in the Workday cloud. So let's take a look at what we need to do. We have all of these we will cover, so we will go through these in detail, and we will see these tasks as well. So to enable to basically avail this feature, you need to do some setups, like in the maintain skills and experience setup. Make sure that you have enabled the use of Workday Skills Cloud. You need to enable the convert duplicate skills to skills cloud skills. If there are any duplicate skills, we are enabling it to be using the skills present on the Workday cloud, and then convert synonymous skills to skills cloud skills. So these three should be enabled. And then we would create skill vendors using the maintain skill vendor task. As you can see here, I have already created these two skill vendor names. So when you add a skill vendor name here, Workday will automatically populate a reference ID for the same. We do not need to enter anything here. And when you create a skill vendor, that will be then utilized when you are importing your external skills. It will be tagged to the external skills that we are going to bring into Workday. Let's look at this manage external skills domain. So if it is disabled, make sure it has been enabled and give the relevant accesses to the tasks and to the web services over here. Then we need to create an EIB using the import external skill web services, and we will see how we do that. Instances. Yeah, so import external skills. This is an EIB that I've already created. And as you can see, it is using the web service import external skill. So once you create the EIB, you can generate the spreadsheet template. And this is what then it'll look like, the import external skill. This is the template that we will use to upload the external skills. All we need to do is provide the spreadsheet key, provide the unique ID and the skill name, and the skill vendor ID that this skill is being tagged to. So this skill vendor ID is something that Workday provides in the skill vendor task that we saw earlier. So you map those skill vendor IDs to these particular new external skills, fill in this template, and then load it using the same EIB in Workday. Then when you have loaded the external skills, then using the import external skill mapping web service, we need to generate the spreadsheet with data. Okay, so let us take a look at this particular spreadsheet. Yeah, so before this, let me show you the EIB, which is the external skill mapping. So you create an EIB, and we can see that we are using the import external skill mapping web services here, generate the spreadsheet. And what we can see here is that how Workday has mapped the skills that we have loaded. So when we load the external skills, Workday will run a background operation where it is trying to match the external skills with what we have on the skill cloud and what we have as a maintained skill on our tenant. So we'll just see that what kind of relationships Workday is able to do when Workday tries to do that kind of mapping. There are 4 categories. So first one being the exact match mapped to the skills cloud skill. So if for a given external skill, there is an exact match to the canonical skill on the Workday cloud, this is the relationship that Workday will mention. Then exact match mapped to the maintained skill. So if there is an exact match on a tenant that is if there is an exact match with the skill that is present on your tenant, this is the value that Workday will provide. If there is no exact match, but only a synonym match, then this is the value. And if it does not match with the skills cloud or with the maintained skill, then unmatched value would be provided. So if we go back here, we can see that these are the this is the match type values that I was talking about. So for these 2 skills, Workday has found exact match mapped to the skills cloud skill. But for this one, this has been unmatched. So if there is an exact match to the skills cloud skill or with the maintained skill, there is no action required. But if it's unmatched or if it's a synonym match, then you may need to take an action of either creating a maintained skill. So if you, like for this one, for instance, if in this template you mark this as yes, so then Workday will create a the same skill on the tenant. The second option is that you utilize these suggestions from Workday, which are present on the Workday skill cloud. So there is a similar skills which are available, which can be a potential match to the social media content creator skill. So they have these suggestions. If you want to utilize any of these and match your external skill to the Workday skill, we can just simply say a yes here and then save this template, load it back to the EIB, and then we can see then once we load it, how it will look. So we have this view external skill report where we can see now, like for instance, these 2 have been detected as exact match, and this one has been detected as mapped to the skills cloud skill. And the skill which we have chosen is this one. So this is how you can kind of reconcile the external skills that have been loaded with the Workday Skill Cloud and the skills that are present on your tenant. Some additional considerations. If you load external skills into Workday, we need to tag them to a skill vendor that we have seen. And we just saw the view external skills report to see that how the external skills are being mapped to either the Workday Skills Cloud or the tenanted skill values. Once your mappings are confirmed, you can utilize the put external skills web services and then upload these mappings to the various tenants. So as a summary, you have the ability to import external skills, third-party skills to Workday. There is a bit of configuration that's required. And if you do not do anything, then you will not be impacted. So in continuation with the external skills, now Workday also allows us to import externally calculated skill levels. So as of now, as Anna had also mentioned earlier, that Workday utilizes a couple of skill calculation methods. One is the self-assessment, the other being get feedback, where you are asking other people to kind of rate you on the skill. So, but now Workday is providing us with the ability to import any externally calculated skill levels. And then you can use this external calculation or the external kind of rating and aggregation to the already set up skill level system in Workday. And we will see this in more detail. A small note here that this feature leverages the mappings that we have seen in the previous feature. So to enable this, Workday provides us with a couple of new web services like get external skill sources and import external skill sources. There are a couple of new domains. So as we know, self-service domain to enable the employees to access it for themselves, and worker data for other security groups to see this kind of information. Then maintain skill level setup. It has been updated to now incorporate the externally calculated skill level field. And the UI also has been improved by updating these below tasks, view skill detail and edit skill detail, where now Workday clearly shows that how the skill level has been calculated. So let's walk through this configuration together. So again, to avail this feature, we need to enable the Skills Cloud and enable these two options. An optional field requirement here is populate suggested skills for workers. This enables external skill sources to display on the worker profile when the skill is selected. And then we need to enable these domains. And what we need to do to load an external skill level against an external skill, use the import external skills web services. This we have seen. And the next one is import an external skill level. So how do we do that? We utilize the import external skill sources web services here, and then we need to again use the EIB and then generate the spreadsheet. I am now going to quickly show you what that EIB looks like. Sorry. Import external skill source. Yeah, this is utilizing the import external skill sources. We are going to generate the spreadsheet again using this EIB, which will look something like this. So this will basically help us. This EIB is helping us to load the externally calculated skill level to a worker. So what we need to do is, of course, give the spreadsheet key here, the worker, the employee ID or the contingent worker ID, then putting in more information about the external skill. You give the external skill ID, you give the normalized skill level. So whatever is the external skill level, we need to normalize it to the Workday standard of skill levels, which is a 5-scale skill level. We need to give the effective moment, and this context is a free context, so it really is not loaded. Then these other fields like external skill vendor reference, mapped to Workday skill reference and Workday overall skill level. These are only filled once we extract data from Workday. So while you are loading the external skill level, we can simply just ignore these fields. These are not required to be filled in. Yeah, so we have talked about how we need to populate it. Then again, we can go to the maintain skill level setup task. Yeah, this is interesting to see how we can then use this new, this is a new skill level calculation option that I was talking about. It's called externally calculated skill level, and based on your requirement, you can give the weighting so that all three of them can act in aggregation. If you do not want to utilize any of this, just make them 0 and then put 100 in the others. So whichever way you want to configure can be done. And yeah, total weighting of the skill level sources must be 100. And yes, so we have seen that. And once all of that is ready and your sheet is ready, you can then load this EIB using the EIB that I had shown earlier, and then the skill level information will then be loaded for this particular employee here. And we can actually see quickly what it looks like for this person. To see the job, should be somewhere here under the skills. So we have loaded it for this particular external skill, and you can see now the external skill level is being populated. The experience is 3 out of 5, which we have loaded. Then the vendor information and the last updated it also is also here. For this skill, we have not loaded anything, so it's just no information provided here. Going back to the slides, some of the additional considerations. When we are filling in the template, only these 5 columns are required to be filled. And the following columns, which we saw, the 3 columns that we had left blank, they are only present for providing context upon exporting the data out of Workday. And in order to load external skill level, we must first load the external skill vendors, followed by the external skills, and then the mappings. And then external mappings are required to load external skills. We have seen that. And the validation will fire. Workday has configured a validation if the mapping is not present on the tenant. So there will be a validation rule that will get triggered and will not allow the load for us. So in summary, Workday now allows us to import externally calculated skill levels. A lot of configuration needed, and if it's not done, then the feature is not available. Now, yes, now there has been some updates in the Org Studio related to job change. So Org Studio experience has now been improved. So when you propose change job for your positions and your workers, you can now specify organization assignments for the supervisory organizations. And once you do that and you go on to your mass action workbooks, similar experience has been provided over there. So if you have already configured Org Studio and Mass Actions, users secured to the maintain org domain, they will automatically have access to this new job change related action for workers and unfilled positions. For users who have access to participate in org design domains, you must give access to this additional org designs job change security policy. So what we need to do is first maintain Org Studio configuration task and select the job change options. So let's quickly go into the tenant. See. Yeah, so as you can see here, we have this assign roles tab and a job change tab. And if you select the default option, so whatever is the default reasons and categories that are coming via the maintain reasons and categories task for change job will be utilized for the org studio experience as well. But Workday allows you to configure these. So if there are some specific reasons that you want to utilize for the org studio, you can just keep them here and remove the rest. Similar can be done for the assign orgs experience as well. And then once this is set up, we can access an existing org studio design or create one, and then do the job change on a worker or on an unfilled position. So let's uh, see that in an existing org studio design. We edit this one. We should now be able to see the job change action over here. And then the reasons are the ones that we have configured on the earlier task. So we can select and go on with the process. And any restrictions that may be there or any validations that would be there with the job change would then come into picture in the org studio as well. And then you can see we have this change org assignments option as well, where you can add more organization types here, or you can update any proposed organizations. Some additional things to remember here are that Org Studio will not support automatically closing a position. You need to manually close a position using the close position feature. Adjusted effective dates support job change in Org Studio, and job change for Org Studio does not support job overlap, any configure optional fields, any job change templates. So a couple of things that are changing. We have seen some configuration also is required in terms of the domain securities. And if you have Org Studio enabled, please make sure that these domains are given the correct access. If you have not configured Org Studio, you will not see any changes to your tenant. All right, now moving on to the mass actions and workbooks for change job. So this is also one of the features that helps our customers to ease out the manual processes that they do in Workday. And with this, Workday allows us to perform change jobs for workers in bulk using workbooks. So of course, it will mitigate the risk that is coming by doing all the manual tasks. It will save us time. So what we need to do here to enable the access of launch mass action event, this is the task that we are going to use. We need to provide appropriate access, the modify access to the relevant security groups on the mass action events, and provide access to the drive and worksheets. And what we need to do here, and which I'll show you, we need to make sure that the mass action event business process, it has a complete mass action event step. So let's take a look at the mass action business process. And here we have set it up, the complete mass action event. And on the job change business process, we need to enable these policies, the job change mass action, change job, the rest policies. So let me quickly show you what it will look like. Change job. And we can see these policies. And we will see the REST service here being active and the change job mass action a little below, with the security groups given the access to these domains. Similarly, for the change organization assignments for worker business process, we need to enable these similar policies. Now, we've seen the change of policy. Yes, another important action that we need to take is on the maintain change job template. So we can here, we need to, so whatever templates for change job we want to be enabled for the mass actions, we need to add here under the enable for column, these mass action. Okay, so for now, for demo purposes, we have added it in all of these. And with this, we can launch a mass change job. So this task is going to open a facet search report for us, where we can actually select the population that we want to do the change job for. So let's say there are some people in Spain who we want to move to another country. And if we do a launch mass action, we are then taken to the screen, which asks us some very similar information that we see in a change job. And based on the change job templates that that we select here, and these are coming from the ones that we have enabled on the maintain change job template task. Based on what template we select here, we are prompted for these fields. Let's say they are moving to another location, and then you do OK. And then Workday will run this process in the background to create a worksheet for us. That worksheet can then be utilized. I think it's going to take some time, so we can see something which is already in the tenant. And then you can see we have a change job here where all the worker information will be populated. The position, the effective date. So some of the columns are striped. So these columns are not editable, but the ones that are not, like the effective date and the next pay period, these can be updated. Like the location here can be updated and so on. And these are the fields which are very similar to the ones that we see when we initiate the task via the UI. And again, when we do a validation here, we can see, we will be able to see if there are any errors. So for instance, right now, there are some errors related to the reason that has been selected here. So as a user, we can correct these errors and then validate and then run the process, which will then trigger the change job business process in the background, and then the changes will be made to the worker profiles. So a few additional considerations here are that whatever changes are mentioned in the workbook, and if there are any approval steps or any review steps in the business process, they will be triggered. So if we do not want those processes to be triggered, Workday suggests that we create a rule-based business process where you can say that if this is being triggered via a mass action, then we will just utilize a leaner business process for change job. If a separate rule-based definition is not doable, then on the approval or the review steps, you can put in condition rules to again check if it is coming through a mass action event type. Those approvals can be skipped. Then Workday recommends that all the fields are completed in the worksheet so that data can be populated efficiently. Do not go beyond 1,000 rows of data in the worksheet for an optimal performance. Mass action event business process does not currently support approval steps. So any approvals will not be triggered inside the mass action event. So as we have seen that change job currently supports the change organization assignments. If we see here, we can see that we can do any change organization assignments here for these workers as well. So this is supported, but any compensation changes are not supported. So what is changing again? Workday is enabling you to change the jobs of multiple workers in one go using the mass action event, using the worksheets. There is some configuration which is required related to the security, and if you do nothing, you will still be able to you'll see the new enable for column in maintain change job templates. So you will see this mass action option available there, but you won't be able to change anything through a workbook. So my task. Now this is again related to UI and how Workday wants to give a really good experience to its users. What they have done in this release, they have redesigned the inbox, which is really cool actually. And this will be very helpful for users who get a lot of inbox tasks. So it'll be easier for them to filter or sort or just quickly search a task or something that has been pending for a long time. So all this can be done via a new domain that's called the Inbox Reimagined, where you can add the security groups that may need such kind of an inbox. Let me show you that new domain. Yeah, for specific users and roles, as the description says. Make sure this domain is enabled first, and then you can add the security groups that would need access to such an inbox. And some of the legacy inbox capabilities may not be available now, like my task refresh or view more processes report case. And we can quickly see what this looks like. These are all the items, and if you open, these are my tasks. There are these filters that are available. So any compensation related or any to-dos, any overdue tasks, any archives, directly just go to the archives, and this really cool search feature now, any compensation related tasks can be seen in one go. So very kind of short and sweet feature and very helpful as well. All we need to do is provide the relevant security groups access to the Inbox Reimagined domain. If you do not give any access, the users are going to see their inbox as is. Now, this is also a really good feature, that is configuring organization-based routing. So Workday now allows the approval chain and the consolidated approval chain routing to happen in an organization hierarchy structure, but not like you can modify the way the approval chain is now being routed. So just to explain this better, let's say that these are the two organization structures that you have. So you have a supervisory org A, where James is a worker, and Betty is the manager, and A's superior org is AA, and AAA is the superior org of AA. Similarly, the B also follows the same structure. Now, the worker that we have is James, and the manager here is is Betty, and Betty herself sits in the supervisory org BB with manager Logan, and Logan herself is part of the supervisory org BB, where Stephen is the manager. So in a normal scenario, the approval chain will flow if we are doing a business process for James and we have an approval chain for manager, is going to flow like Betty and then Logan and then Stephen. But with this change, what we can do is we can make the business process flow go in the organization structure direction. So it'll go to Betty, then it'll go to Tony, and then it'll go to Chris. So what we need to do here to make this change is on the business process definition and the approval chain or consolidated approval step, we can go to the maintain advanced routing task, and we will see a new checkbox there. Just select that checkbox. Some things to note here, you can only select constrained role security groups for this step for now, and you won't be able to change the step to another step type on the business process definition once this change is made. So this is just a very simple configuration that needs to be done, and yeah, I can quickly show it to you. Can see, just go to maintain advanced routing, and this is the new section now, approval chain routing. Just click on this and this organization based routing will be enabled. Now, Workday also delivers some new report fields on the event business object to report on the organization based routing. So these are the fields that can be utilized. So to summarize what is changing, Workday enables the routing approval chain business process steps using organization-based routing. A very simple configuration to be done to opt this in. If we do not do anything, Workday will continue to route the approval chain and the consolidated approval chain steps in the similar position-based routing manner. Now, the next feature about reporting gender, this is again to do with the compliance requirement from different governments, where sometimes when workers do not report their gender, when their gender is in an undeclared value in the tenant, the admins can then utilize this feature, this new field reporting gender, to record and report on the gender of the employees. So if there are any country regulatory and compliance requirements for generating some reports, like in the US, they have EEO reports. In the UK also, they have such reports where they need to report on the demographic data. This feature can come in very handy when employees have not identified themselves into a particular gender. So what we need to do, again, some security updates, some domains that need to be provided access to. Then we need to set this feature, activate this particular field in the maintain localization settings. And another thing to be noted is that it's important to verify the values of whatever genders have been set up. So please do go to your maintain gender task or maintain genders by country task to see what values are being populated, because in this field, reporting gender in turn will be utilizing the fields that the values that have been set up under these tasks. Then make sure we are giving correct access to person data reporting gender domain. And Workday also will allow to override this term reporting gender to another suitable value, which is more suitable to you as a customer, as a user. That is allowed, but not right now, but hopefully this should be available in production. So let's take a quick look at what it looks like. We'll go to the localization settings, and this should fall under personal information. You can see here this reporting gender worker. Make sure it is active and it is allowed for the countries where it is required. And if we go to one of our test workers to see what it looks like. The other Jakely. So you can see now the gender here is not declared, and we also have now a field for reporting gender, which is going to pull out the values from what has been set up in the tasks that I mentioned earlier, the maintain gender and the maintain gender for country tasks. These are the values, and same will be utilized over here. Some additional considerations. So yes, of course, this feature enables you to meet government reporting requirements while offering your workers more gender options. Right now, this feature is only enabled for worker. So Workday delivered EEO reports will be updated to account for this particular field. Purge and data scrambling ability will also be provided in future releases. And right now, if you are using custom objects to capture this kind of information, you may want to extract the data into a custom report and then load it into this particular field by using the change personal information web service. So to summarize, we now have a new field called reporting gender. A couple of changes that we need to do with security and domain, and activating this for the countries. If you do not do any of these changes, this field will not be available, and your personal information section will look like what it looks like now. Now, another interesting feature that Workday has brought out in this release is about working time. Now, Workday allows us to configure country-specific rules for working time. So you do not need to only depend on the location to calculate the FTE, but you can create your own rules based on location, time type, job profile for the workers. And the system will automatically populate the scheduled and default work weekly hours on the staffing events, and the FTE will be calculated in a more accurate manner. So to enable this, Workday has delivered these new tasks called as create working time eligibility rule. Basically, these tasks will help us to create the eligibility rules. And there is a new maintain working time for country task, which I will show you in a bit, where we can actually utilize these rules and provide the default and scheduled weekly hours, which will then be used in the business processes. Based on the eligibility of your working time rules and the default weekly hours, schedule weekly hours, workbooks are also now being populated. And there are a couple of new reports that are delivered that enable us to see the, these working time for country and the working time eligibility rules in our tenant. So let's see what this looks like, how we can create these working time eligibility rules. So I've already created one. So working time eligibility. So here, yeah. So here we are saying that the location, and you see that these fields are specific to the working time. They have in brackets this working time. So make sure you're selecting these fields that have working time mentioned. And location working time is London, time type is part-time. We can add job profiles or many others, many other fields over here for comparison. And once you have your rules created, you can configure the maintain working time for country task. So since my rule is for London, let me set it up for this particular country. So based on the parameters I've given in this rule, I want the default weekly hours to be 35 and scheduled weekly hours to be 20 for my employees who are part-time and based out of London. Now I'm going to if I try to hire in any of these filled positions, yeah. So based on the parameters that I give here, based on the parameters that I give here, my working time, default weekly hours and scheduled weekly hours should get populated. And then the FTE should also be calculated based on these. So one thing to note here is that to pre-populate weekly hour values on create position and edit position restrictions business processes, you must have the enable FTE on position restrictions, checkbox ticked on the edit tenant setup HCM task. So we've seen this demo, a few additional considerations. So the defaulting only is now, as of now, enabled for the staffing events. In future releases, Workday will target this defaulting in recruiting events as well. There's no change made in the user interface for change job, create position and edit position restrictions processes. And then again, what is changing? The ability to configure country-specific rules for working time. there are some updates that need to happen for you to enable and utilize this feature. So Workday docs for HCM business processes. Workday is now expanding the number of HCM business processes that will support Workday docs. To avail this, you need to provide access to Drive and Docs domains. Ensure that your business processes are updated to configure the new document template on the Generate Document step. This is an exhaustive list of business processes that can now use Workday documentation. So let me quickly show you. So we can access the docs through Drive. And like how I have mentioned here that you can do a title change and make sure that your business process definition is using the generate document steps. For instance, here, the review document, and then you can configure the step and you can utilize the document, the Workday document that you have created. Make sure that it's added over here. Some additional considerations. Automated conversion of templates based on text blocks into doc templates format that is not supported right now. Also, some of the things Workday does not support is a subset of non-Latin languages, custom fonts, template editor, preview PDFs, generated PDFs that use Roboto font. Aux migration of templates between tenants is not supported right now. Reusable content between templates is not supported. So if you are using the same content in two templates, you need to update them into both the templates. So quick summary, Workday is now expanding the ability to utilize Workday docs on more business processes, a few security changes to be done. If you do not make any updates, you will not see any changes. Now, Workday enables us to track the workplace testing and vaccination statuses of your employees. So in order to do this, you can now configure these two tasks on the personal information worklet. Add my vaccination, which is displayed as vaccination status, and add my workplace test, which displays as workplace test result. There is a new vaccine manufacturer report field on the vaccination business business object that can be pulled onto any custom reports that you are using to view the vaccine manufacturer information. There is a new add vaccination event report field on the worker business process business object, and then all of these two new fields are then again secured via the person data vaccination domain. So make sure relevant security access is provided to these domains for accessing these fields. So some more new report fields that are provided on the add vaccination event business object. Fully vaccinated, vaccination event type date, status, which vaccine manufacturer, and vaccine type. So quickly, I'm just conscious of the time. There are enhancements in the vaccination and worker test functionality. There is some setup that is required. If you do not enable it, you will not see any changes. Now, some of the other features we will take a look at, not in so much detail though. So Workday now enables us to use notification templates on custom notifications for hire and onboarding business processes. Uh, we must activate the notification templates for the custom business process notification type on the maintain notification templates task before accessing them on the override email template prompt. So this feature is not fully available on the preview tenant as of now, but hopefully we should have it in production and you should be able to utilize the notification templates on these business processes. Then again, reassigning business process steps to non-workers. So Workday expands how the user is able to reassign the business processes, enabling them to reassign them to a non-worker role, such as a student or an extended enterprise learner or somebody who's terminated and who has an active Workday account. So all of this is now enabled on these tasks, the reassign task, reassign this task and reassign unassigned task. Then a lot of updates on the duplicate management framework. They are enhancing the duplicate management framework by delivering more insights on the match and merge process. Sometimes when people are running the merge processes and the match and merge processes, there are some errors. So they are not very clear on why a certain record was not matched. So Workday is bringing out more detailed errors so that the user is able to exactly see why a record was not merged and things like that. So there are new tabs also being added to the view person duplicate record report, which you can use to see the personal and contact information. That will help you to get more insight on the merge process. So you can see the contact information, other information, personal information tabs now on the view person duplicate record report. There are new tabs on the match record page, and they include more information on the merge preview page. Then there is a new report called View Automatic Merge Job Details Report that enables you to view details on the most recent automatic merge job. So it includes information like how many duplicate persons records were automatically merged and why, if certain records were not merged, what could be the reasons. Then there is an undo remove as duplicate task, which can be utilized to undo any removal of a duplicate record, enabling you to match the record again in case there's been a mistake. So you can undo that removal. Then this undo functionality is available in the duplicate mass action task as well. There are some new report fields which are mentioned here. And then again, to help you to view more information, we remove the always apply to data source option on below data source filters. So basically improvising the duplicate management framework, making it more insightful for the customer so it knows what has gone in the background of these actions. Then the uncached national identifiers feature, which is again in compliance with some of the country-specific regulations where they want to keep some data encrypted at all times, national ID being one of them. So now what we can do is we can store the encrypted national ID, we can retrieve them and temporarily decrypt the data in an in-cache memory and then we can utilize this particular national ID value. So to enable this, Workday has provided a scheduled national ID migration task that you can use to configure jobs to migrate from a cached to an uncached national ID or uncached to a cached national ID. So I can quickly show you this task, schedule national ID. Migration. And there is some information mentioned here, and you can either run it now or you can run it once in the future. Please feel free to explore this. And again, there are new web services to support this feature, which is get national ID type cache status and put national ID type cache status that can be used to retrieve the national ID status details or initiate a migration job. The other feature, again, to do with compliance and the legalities around the remote working and the specific working time is suppressing the mobile push notifications for business processes. So Workday now enables you to configure business processes to not send any push notifications to workers related to any custom or system business process notifications. So there have been grievances where people do not want to receive any work-related emails, or there have been country-specific rules where an organization is not allowed to send emails after the working hours of an employee. So to tackle such kind of work situations, Workday is allowing this feature. So when you go to this edit business process definition, you can now see this option where you can suppress channels for notifications. So what you want to suppress, you can see the mobile push notification here. So if you select it here in this prompt, Workday will not send any notifications for, let's say, a system notification that has been set up or a custom one that has been set up for the business processes. Then service date change sub-processes, again to do with the experience of the user. Workday enables us to add custom labels to the service dates, enabling us to name them according to the business requirements. So there is also, we can configure the service date change business process now as a sub-process on the change job business process. So you can easily use the service date change if you are doing a change job for a particular worker. Then retaining access to delegated task by default. You can now, for a delegated task, you can retain the access to it by default. So this functionality, will help you in retaining the access, but you need to be, you need to select when you add a new delegation configuration and select. So when you are selecting for all business processes option and for business process options, you will always have the retain access unless you clear these two checkboxes. Then let's quickly talk about the roadmap. So we have seen the themes around which Workday has brought in the new features. Going with the similar theme. Workday will be providing some enhancements on the onboarding experience of the workers. And as of now, Workday has provided some address lookup features for France, wherein if somebody is inputting the address information for France, they will be prompted by some default values. So this will, help to the users to complete the events correctly and reduce the rate of them leaving the task because it's too complicated to finish. So when the address values are being prompted, users will be able to finish the task quickly. So right now it is only enabled for France, and Workday plans to enable this for other countries as well. Uh, there will also be enhancements in terms of how people being able to upload how they pronounce their names on their worker profiles, and all of this is going to provide a seamless experience to the users. Then going with the theme agility, we have seen that Workday now allows us to do a rule-based defaulting for working time and enabling the flexi work arrangements to an auto end and duplicate management frameworks, the Org Studio enhancements. In future, there are going to be more service date enhancements. There will be expanded contingent worker staffing capabilities. And the configurable routing for job overlap positions will also be available. Yes, and in this release, there was a lot of stress on compliance related features, and going forward, that's going to continue in terms of Form I-9 enhancements and E-Verify enhancements. That's it from me today on the HCM features. Thank you all for taking out the time and joining us. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at this address, and do give your feedback using this QR code.